Today's video is coming to you as a result of that video I saw a couple weeks ago of a Gen Zer, a Zoomer, in his car, like so many TikTokers do, crying, screaming that something is going on in his life that he doesn't like, and it's somebody else's fault. This is not taking responsibility for your own actions. In this case, he specifically named boomers and corporations, and the problem with that is you have free will. You're responsible for everything you do. You have to pay now if you want to play later, versus what we're seeing, the play now and pay later. And it's just digging a hole deeper and deeper, so that you're likely never going to have the good things that you really want because you want it all right now. Now, in this video, this is coming from 60 Minutes Australia, and we're going to play just parts of it. We're not going to go through the full, I think it's 20 minutes, something like that. I just want to pick out some of the highlights and show you some of the attitudes. We're going to see one person continuing down the path of self-destruction and another one kind of taking life as a grown-up. And I know that Y's and Z's hate that expression, but you'll see exactly what we're talking about, and you're just doing it to yourself. So if you like this type of video content, go ahead, hit the click, like, and subscribe right now. You can always undo it if you find out that you don't like my content later on, but just go ahead and do it right now as we get started. All right, we're going to go ahead and roll the intro on this. Here we go.
It's been a hell of a week. The global economy's in meltdown, the financial markets are in chaos, and it's not over yet, not by a long shot. Basically, greed, dodgy loans, and bad debt.
No, this is the first thing I'm going to disagree with. It's not necessarily greed or dodgy loans. It's the personal behavior of the individuals that we'll see in this video. It's the same thing. If you tell somebody they're being irresponsible, they'll turn off on you on a heartbeat. They just don't want to hear that they're masters of their own domain, and they either are going to be a prince or a pauper depending on the decisions that they make. So we need to keep this in mind. We're not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but this is your crusty old grandpa type guy, the get off my lawn, telling you the actual honest truth.
Utter blame. So you'd think we'd all be a bit cautious with our credit cards. Some of us may be, but not the kids they call Generation Y. They're young, reckless, and they've racked up an astonishing $60 billion of debt. New cars, new clothes, new toys, no problem. Just whack it on the card.
That's the problem. It's the irresponsibility in spending. You're going to pay for it one way or the other, or you'll hit a bankruptcy at some point in your life, and then that'll set you back about 7 years. Try to get that off your record. And what does a creditor want to see before they look at giving you a future loan? They're going to find out, did you pay off the old debt that you already had? And unfortunately, that's the part that a lot of these people, you're going to hear certain words that kind of trigger me because I've lived through this with other people, and they simply deny responsibility. It's happiness now, they say. The misery that they're going to face in the future is going to be tenfold. It's not a good place to want to sleep at night when you're being hit with the duns and the back charges and the interest is getting out of hand. It drops a level of depression on you that will just stop so many aspects of your life. And that's what it's about. Pay now, play later, versus play now and pay later. All right, here we go. Let's turn this back on.
These kids have never known tough economic times, so they think they're invincible. But now they're in for the shock of their lives. The world economy is in freefall, on the brink of recession. But 20-year-old Amanda Nabulsi couldn't care less.
How much do you spend a week on your credit card?
Oh, 1,500?
And you don't blink at that?
Not at all. Nothing.
It's a lot of money.
It's all right. It's happiness.
Amanda's typical of Generation Y, those aged between 18 and 28. She still lives at home, has no bills to pay. She earns $35,000 a year and happily blows every cent.
Don't look at the price, really. If you love it, you love it. That's it. Get it. Don't have hesitations about it. Don't have second thoughts.
That's the attitude that I want you to pay attention to. She's living at home, so she's basically still freeloading off of her parents. She makes $35,000 a year. So rather than saving some money maybe for a down payment to get on the housing ladder, to start with real property, something that will go up. Normally they go up in value along with the inflation, because they say that the rich don't mind inflation as much because they have an asset class. The asset class itself is attached to something that inflation makes it more expensive. It's something that, not like a car. Cars always depreciate. You buy it, it's a depreciating asset class. It has a value. You buy it and it goes from whatever you bought it, usually on the never, on the time, on the interest. So you pay even more for it if you don't have the cash. You buy it and it goes to scrap value. So you have nothing with it. Now, if you turn around and buy a house or property, something that does invest, or at least is a hold of value, as inflation depletes the value of the dollar or the pound sterling or whatever unit of currency you use, if that buying power goes down, it makes the replacement of that thing cost more money. And if it costs you more money, it costs everybody else more money. And so if you already bought yours and you maintain it, it goes up in value over time. Stuff like clothes, very limited lifetime, and whether they're needed or not, just to have a different change of outfit, that kind of money is not really necessary. Who are you trying to impress? Are you trying to build for the future, like trying to save a little bit of money so you can get out of mom and dad's house and get on your own? Or do you just laissez le bon temps rouler? Do you just ignore the facts right in front of your nose? Because if you can't manage your money while living rent-free with mom and dad, you're never going to make it out there renting, and you'll probably not make it off the rent to the housing ladder, that first rung that actually starts to save you some net worth. That maybe in the future, if you really get in bad shape, you can maybe be able to tack into some of that equity that you get, but you're not building equity buying junk that's just going to be nothing later on. Let's get started again.
What, whack it on the card?
Yeah, and pay it off later. It's like a take-home lay-by.
Pretty amazing.
Today, she's unleashing a brand new credit card. Limit $5,000.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Her age group is now known as Generation Debt, owing a staggering $60 billion.
Are there any coins or notes in your wallet?
5 cents.
5 cents. She's actually got 5 cents of hard money in her pocket, but she's got a new piece of plastic which represents $5,000 worth of debt that I guarantee you she's going to blow, because you see what she says. It's I've got it, I'm going to spend it.
And underpinning their attitude is a naive confidence everything will be okay.
What do you think older generations think about your attitude to spending?
We spend too much money. That's what they think. I get told off by old ladies about, you're spending too much money. I mean, that's my concern, not anyone else's concern. Where I'm heading has got to do with me. It's got nothing to do with anyone else. It's my bill, it's my debt, I'll deal with it. And if I can't afford it, I'll just, go bankrupt.
So she won't listen to anybody. She won't listen to the advice. I mean, how do you help someone who won't help themselves? And that's what she is. I mean, she's got the information. She's just willingly and wantonly ignoring it. I don't know that she actually appreciates the value of her future that she's compromising by taking the laissez-faire attitude that I'll just go bankrupt in the future. Well, when you go bankrupt in the future, not only do you still have those debts, they're charged off to your name, even if they go to a charge-off, a rate where they just say we can't collect it, you're not worth it. It goes into your, I hate to use this because it sounds so elementary at school, so it goes into your permanent record, and it will follow you then for about 7 years before it finally falls off. So it's a warning to other creditors that you are unworthy of trust.
This is a generation which is only going to know debt and no assets, and that's an extremely dangerous combination for an economy facing a global recession.
The world financial crisis is being caused by debt. Why does Gen Y keep spending?
Because it's just like having a car accident. You only stop driving irresponsibly after you've hit the wall. You only stop driving irresponsibly after you've hit the wall. You only stop driving irresponsibly after you've hit the wall.
After you've hit the wall. Now let's contrast that to person 2 in this 60 Minutes Australia.
This is my life beat. This is 70 grand's worth of debt.
21-year-old Zoe Zerkler has hit the wall, big time.
There's an 11 grand personal loan, a 9 grand TV, a 10 grand car, there's a 2 grand credit card, there's a $1,000 credit card.
Just 3 years out of school,
That's
Zoe's on the brink
70
of
grand's worth
bankruptcy.
debt there. This folder is my life. This is who I am, what I do. This is me. 70 grand's worth of debt.
On a supermarket salary of about $35,000, Zoe bought a car, a PlayStation, a state-of-the-art laptop, 2 huge televisions, and much more. All on credit.
See, we're going to hear the excuse that consumerism did this, that she was forced to do it because she was tricked as a young and naive person, and therefore somehow this is not her fault. It's the evil corporations, it's the greed of the banks, it's everybody else's fault but hers. And yet she, and I'm not razzing on her, I'm not dissing her for this, it's a learning and growing experience that hopefully you don't have to get to $70,000 worth of debt before you stop, before you do this. There's an old expression, if you're digging a hole and you find yourself at the bottom, the best thing you can do is stop digging. And this goes for anybody. If we're unwilling to recognize the path we're on, then and then stop ourselves, something is going to stop us. It will stop us. In this case, they talk about hitting the wall, like a big brick wall, running face first into a big brick wall. It's going to stop you. You're not going to deny it. You're not going to get by with it. And she can do bankruptcy, I assume. This is Australia. I don't know their law. But if she does that, it's going to haunt her and follow her from then on. And in fact, employers may even look at that type of information because they want to know, are you a trustworthy person? People say, well, it's unfair to grade me on my credit score. Well, that's what it's there for, is to tell the world whether or not you're a responsible person with money. So it is what it is. But we'll watch to see how person one's attitude goes versus person two's attitude. And there may only be a year or so different between the two of them. So let's restart this again.
When you look at all this paperwork, $70,000 worth of debt, what do you think?
Why? Why was I so stupid? Why wasn't I just happy with what I had? Sorry.
It's really it's that bad for you.
Yeah.
They're destroying their future. They're not going to be able to afford to have kids. They're not going to be able to afford to have a home. More than likely they're going to be on a pension. And they should be set up for life. And we've squandered it on what, like a big screen TV and a flashy car. It's soul destroying.
That it is, and that's the part that older people like person one, when she said, old lady stopped me and tell me not to do this, but it's my life, I'll do what I want to. These people are not trying to rule or control you when they try to give you some advice. They're trying to give you some benefits of having been older and made a good chance they've made some of these mistakes their own self the hard way. Now, it's getting worse in the sense that the government spendings all around the world, particularly I look at it in terms of the United States, that extra spending has resulted in the government just printing money, just creating money into the money supply. That causes inflation. That makes everything else cost more money. And if you outpace inflation, you have a shot. If you're falling behind the inflation, you just have a huge hole. Not only is your dollar not worth as much because you then can't buy something later on when you legitimately need it. Maybe that flashy car needs a repair or needs tires, or you have medical debt and you've spent all your money on clothes and travel and just absolute worthless nonsense, and then suddenly you have a medical emergency. That's why you need some credit. You need to watch your credit utilization and never allow your credit utilization to get above 30% unless it's absolutely necessary. And going to a Taylor Swift concert or flying to Scotland is not an emergency. It's just not.
Okay, that gives us a total of $25,000 worth of debt.
Ben Paris runs a debt management
If I put this
service.
into my calculator.
This is their last stop. People with debt are calling here.
It's either this or bankruptcy.
He goes into bat for people like Zoe, trying to negotiate a deal with creditors. Business is booming.
Here's the problem that a lot of people don't understand. This is better than bankruptcy because it's showing a degree of responsibility if you'll go to someone who then will negotiate. Now, I understand there's a lot of scams in this. I've never had to do this. So what they're going to try to do is negotiate a partial debt payment. Because if, say, what was her number, $70,000, $75,000, if the creditors can get, say, $50,000 on a longer period of time, or $25,000 on a period of time, that's better than bankruptcy, which nets them much often nothing because of the type of debt. If it's the wrong type of debt that's non-secured, there's nothing to collect in its return. But even this will show up on your credit report. It will probably look a lot better to a creditor that you got into trouble, you recognize you had trouble, you tried to work it out, they at least got something out of it, and it's better than just running it till you hit the wall and then say, hose it, it's your problem, I'll just sign a piece of paper and then do without the next 7 years. And maybe I got enough cool stuff that I can do that. But now if it's something like part of it is like on a car, you might lose that car. If you lose that car that you needed to go to work, guess what happens to your income? Now we've got it requeued. Let's check with person one. Do you remember this lady?
What's fueling this crisis is ridiculously easy credit being offered to a generation who are used to getting what they want.
This is so exciting.
Amanda has only 22 cents in the bank, but she's preparing to buy a $60,000 car on credit.
It's really pretty.
It's breathtakingly reckless, but if it all goes pear-shaped, Amanda believes she's not to blame.
There it is. It's not her fault. But if her spending blows up in her face, it's not her fault. This is the failure to accept responsibility.
Like I'm a celebrity. Hello.
Are you saying you're a victim in all of this?
We are. We're targets. We are targets to the bank because we know that they know that we're gullible.
Okay, so here's where the BS and doublespeak comes from. She's obviously not going to take responsibility for her own actions. And she's aware, she's cognizant that she's spending too much. And yet she doesn't really care because it's going to be somebody else's fault. So she's obviously smart enough to know that this is going to blow up in her face. And yet, as long as when it happens, she's a victim and it's the bad banks who did it. The bad banks may have extended you credit that you didn't deserve and were unable and unwilling to pay, but it's your choice, your responsibility to act like a responsible human flipping being. And if you don't, it's your future you're hurting, nobody else's.
They know that anything they say will just follow. It's just they're the leader and we're just the little people walking behind them.
Okay, then why didn't you listen to the little old ladies who told you that you're spending too much?
Give me money.
You're loving it. You could have sent the card back.
But I needed it.
She needed it. She needed more credit like she does a hole in the head.
I need it for emergencies.
See, there she is. She thinks she's being cute. Emergencies. She needs it for emergencies. A new outfit is not an emergency. Now, if you're cold and naked and you don't have a winter coat or summer coat if you're on the other side of the world, that might be an emergency because you need that physical protection. But these aren't emergencies. This is just childishness. And we're going to see again when we go back to person two, we're going to see a contrast and comparison between someone who has gotten the message and someone who is just absolutely, abjectly refusing to take responsibility as a grown human being.
I think your definition of emergencies is different to my definition of emergency.
And I'm loving it. I really am. It's fabulous.
What role does easy credit play?
An enormous role, because even if you only knew the good times and you're willing to be irresponsible, it takes an irresponsible lender on the other side to give you...
See, and here, he's not helping because he's reinforcing her bad behavior. This, I believe, we would call enabling. When you tell someone who is not accepting responsibility for their personal actions that it's somebody else's fault, that's their default position anyway. Well, it's not my fault. Now we're going to blame the banks for a personal decision. If you were to put your hand in a wood chipper, you're an adult. You have the right to put your hand in a wood chipper if you want. But let's just say you put your hand in a wood chipper. Is it the wood chipper's fault or the designer of the wood chipper's fault? They built it. You know it's dangerous. You have that built-in common sense to know that this is probably something you shouldn't do, is to jam your hand down in a wood chipper. So we're going to jam our hand down in a wood chipper and then say, oh, it's not my fault. They should have done something to stop me. That's the equivalency of this. Now let's kind of go in the middle of this and listen to how person two is handling her particular situation.
Realised her debt was out of control, so was her life.
I thought about going and being a stripper for a couple of nights just for the money. But when it came down to it, I couldn't do that to my mum. I couldn't do that to my family. I couldn't do it to myself.
What stopped you walking out the door?
My beliefs, my mum. Knowing how it would hurt my mum to know that I went and did that.
Oh, you poor possum.
It's really painful.
Of her generation, Zoe is now back living at home.
Do you know what Gen Y, how much debt they're in?
Overall, in total, no.
How does $60 billion sound?
$60 billion. To the younger folks, the Gen Ys and Gen Zs, I think it's extremely self-destructive to look at the people who've probably been in your life trying to help you avoid some of the mistakes that, well, quite frankly, they learned the hard way themselves. Most of us have been through something like this. And the advice is free. We're trying to help. And you push us away like that first person. It's like, I'm going to have fun. And then, now here we get to see this young lady. You can see the pain in her eyes. I mean, it's when people try to give you advice, they're really not trying to bully you. They're not trying to control your life. They're just trying to help you, okay? They're just trying to help. Won't you accept a little bit of help and take some personal responsibility and accept that the fact it's not the banks, it's not the creditors, it's not anybody else, it's you and your personal choices. If you make smart choices when you're young, you can play a little bit when you're older. It's really nothing more than that.
Oh,
That's you at 40.
that's disgusting. Where's the Botox?
Put it on the card. But the real crunch is your financial situation when you're 40.
Oh.
With your credit card debt, a big car loan, and if you don't pay it on time, you would have paid $82,000 in interest. Are you worried about the future now?
$82,000 is the price that I pay for being happy. For being able to indulge myself in all the luxury items that I've bought over the past 40 years.
There. I mean, I have to laugh a little bit. I'm not making fun of the poor girl. But she's running as fast as she possibly can, straight into the wall. She sees what's going on. She knows what's going to happen. And her, can I say selfishness, her narcissism, her personality disorder, whatever it is in her life that has come so easy to her, as she ages, will probably start tripping off pretty quick after about 30. And she's going to have the debt. And these things are not probably, I would say, probably not going to satiate her needs. And I expect it will accelerate. But you see her answer. This is the price of being happy. But happiness is like a drug. It's like opium. Other people's money. It's addicting. And as long as you get away with it, as long as you can get high, never get high off your own supply, as long as reality never hits you, but it will. It absolutely will.
That's what it is.
It's worth it.
It is, it's worth it.
It's a lesson Zoe Zerkler had to learn the hard way, but finally
she's smart.
Quitting credit.
It's really got you shaking, hasn't it?
It does.
Because of what they've done.
She's working full time, and you can't help but admire her decision to pay back what she owes.
This is what responsibility looks like. Since we've got the alcohol here, I'll let it sit here for just a second, but tell you, they have done an excellent job. I think 60 Minutes has done an excellent job. They've been very fair, except for the part that they blame it on the institution that give them the credit, that will let them do it, to say it's their fault. It's not their fault. It's the personal choice that these people have. You see person number one, completely irresponsible, knows that they're irresponsible, and it will do absolutely nothing to stop that. You can't help someone who won't help themselves. They don't really see it, I don't think. I'm guessing, in terms of just how powerful a correct decision is, a logical, intelligent, mature, responsible decision is when you make it in time. And then, of course, the person number two that we see her pain because she's feeling it. But I have the highest hopes for that young lady because she's come to grips with it. She's got the high debt now at this age. So she may have been the worst of all, because she's 21, I think, but she's actually doing something. So we appreciate you watching, and I want people to understand that as painful as it is, and as much as you don't want to hear people, particularly if it's a stranger trying to give you some advice about how to be responsible, there's a good chance that they've already seen it either personally or with someone they love, and they've seen the pain, and they're just trying to help you. My advice to you, straight away, is delete your TikTok account, because this is information and messaging which is far stronger than any bank could ever do. Is when you see all your friends and the people that you kind of identify with, they look like they're having a good life and you want to have it too, and then it just so happens something that is in your hand that's available to you will make that happen. OPM, other people's money, is a fatal disease, and it's going to hurt you. So I hope this will help someone. I don't know if my presentation helps at all, especially if you're like number one. She's just gonna face plant right into the wall, and reality is going to hurt. You know, you can either try to sneak up behind the bear, or you can just run face at him and see what happens. I think the bear's going to win, don't you? Appreciate you. Remember to click like and subscribe, and we would appreciate you sharing this if you think it will help someone else. What are we here for if not to try to help somebody else lose some of the future pain that they can have? It's just up to them whether or not to take it or not. I'm not going to pay for it. I'm not going to pay for her happiness. I don't owe her a thing. No one owes her a thing. If she just continues, well, it's the price of happiness now, it's not going to work out well.